write your own jingle, Ashley. I
Long as
love
you're
that.
happy, you're always gonna grin.
Oh, thanks,
You
I
get
really
out what you put in. You get out what you put in. Never gonna lose, never gonna win. Long as you're happy, you're always gonna grin. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in.
We are live, yes. And I've got Jeff in the house. All the way from where, Jeff?
From Arkansas, straight in the heart of the United States.
So bang in the middle of the US of A.
Bang in the middle.
It's 12:30 p.m. here in the UK, so it's lunchtime. Where in the time zone are you then, Jeff?
I am 6:30 a.m., about an hour past breakfast.
My goodness, an hour past breakfast. Some people, that's 2 or 3 hours before breakfast. So thank you so much for getting up so early. For those people that don't know who Jeff D. Standridge is, tell us a little about you. I can't even say that. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please, Jeff.
Sure thing. So I'm a native Arkansan, been here my entire life, with the exception of living in the UK, 2003 through 2005. Was formerly trained in the medical field. So I was a paramedic and a respiratory therapist, spent about 9 years on a helicopter team for a children's hospital, 6 of which I was also a professor at the University of Arkansas for medical sciences. Decided I didn't want to do another clinical degree. So I got a doctorate in organizational behavior, went to work for a publicly traded technology firm called Axiom Corporation, spent about 20 years with them, got into the merger acquisition space, and about 8 years ago, on my 50th birthday, I had decided that I'd spent the first half of my life making a living. I wanted to spend the second half of my life making a difference. So I left to start my own consulting firm and joined partners with a gentleman, and we focus on supporting entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, small business owners, with a sponsored consulting firm. And then for larger companies, we have a billable firm called Innovation Junkie, and a venture fund called Cadron Capital Partners.
Wow, we've only got half an hour, Jeff. I can't ask you all the questions that I want to ask you. But first of all, I'm going to go back a little bit. Helicopter? How exciting was that?
It was a great job for a single guy, and maybe even a young married couple, because I met my wife as a flight nurse. But not a great job when you decide you want to create a family, and hours were terrible, kind of like being a chef, I guess. But it was a great, rewarding, early stage of my career for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Saving lives, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. And so I love all these medical dramas and stuff like that, but I cannot watch them because I do not like the sight of blood. So I'd love to have a fly in a helicopter. I have done that, but that's probably the only thing I'd like about that job. But that is incredible. But to go from doing that to then organizations and stuff like that, was it much of a transition? What sort of things have you brought from your previous life to your organizational life?
Yeah, it was more of an evolution than a revolution. I mean, if you look at the resume or read the bio, it looks like a revolution. But I started studying successful people in the healthcare world when I was a young professor at the University of Arkansas for medical sciences. And that was the basis of some of my academic research. And that's what actually led me into the corporate world, was a company wanted to replicate that research inside their technology company. And so then I really started to begin transitioning to this concept of a change agent, an innovator, a corporate culture kind of guy, and really focused on driving individual behavior and how that impacts the overall organization.
Yeah. No, so, but the thing is, you're working with human beings.
That's right.
And human beings don't like change.
That's right.
So
human beings make up organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is the thing. So I don't want to change. But what how do you have that conversation?
Well, you have to first have a reason to change, right? So we start with the world of innovation, which is really starting to question and challenge the status quo. What are the game changers that if, the problems or opportunities, if we could solve them problems or seize the opportunities, what which ones would change the game for the organization and get people bought into the need for change.
Yeah.
And then build the case for that change, and then build a specific plan with the buy-in of those individuals to actually drive that change. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations, people come up with an idea, and so they start rallying people around implementing an idea, but they haven't really done the work to decide what's the problem we're trying to solve or what's the opportunity we're trying to seize. So there's no buy-in. It's just someone had a great idea, and it takes about 3 months to realize that just a great idea is not enough. And so it ends up, petering out over time. And so then they have to go back to the drawing board.
And so would you rather work with a huge organization or one-man band, like a guy in his shed helping people with LinkedIn?
I think my skill, I do both, but I think my skill is more geared toward at least teams of individuals, right? I do a lot of coaching with CEOs and solo entrepreneurs and what have you, but the ultimate goal there is to get a team around them so that the business they create is not 100% dedicated or dependent rather on them. The founder's curse says that the degree to which your company is dependent upon the founder is inversely proportional to the value that company is ultimately worth. And so trying to get people to build a team around them so that they can step out of the business and drive the business forward versus doing the work of the business day in and day out, 12 hours a day.
Yeah. So how do you cope with people like me? Because my business is I help people with LinkedIn.
Yep.
Okay? And I get into the weeds. I spend a lot of time with them, helping them. How do I scale that? Because it's me. I also do public speaking.
Yep.
It's me. I can't clone me. So where would you start there, Jeff?
So the use of technology is a great way to clone you, right? There could be some entry level opportunity for you to add value to your clients at the entry level stage, where maybe they're getting that value from you virtually, whether it's via a course or a series of videos or what have you. The other thing that I do is maybe you don't scale you. Maybe you do continue to be the expert and you give one-on-one guidance and assistance there, but you scale the non-core things that you spend a lot of your time doing with virtual assistants and other team members and what have you. So I usually have folks, first of all, I have folks figure out what's their goal in terms of revenue for the company or in terms of personal income or both. So I usually have people come to me and they say, I want to make $100,000 a year. Or they say, I want my company to generate $1 million a year. And so I then have translated that in what I call the 50-500 rule. There are about 2,000 working hours in a year if you work full time on a 40 hour, the US standard 40-hour work week, about 2,000 hours. So $100,000 a year is $50 an hour. $1 million a year is $500 an hour. And so how much time are you spending on $12, $13, $15, $20 an hour tasks? And number one, are you billing at a rate that could produce that level of revenue or income? Number one, are you creating enough value to bill at that rate? And then number two, are you spending so much of your time on those $20 an hour tasks that you can't get time to do the $50 to $500 task?
Yeah. And I think that's I don't know if there's another rule or curse or something of the entrepreneur or the small business owner, but I think that's the hardest thing to get out of, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. They say the law of compensation in service says that your compensation is directly proportional to the number of people you serve and the value with which you serve them. And so you've got to figure out what's standing in the way between you serving more clients, so to speak. And to mitigate those obstructions.
Yeah, I take it you've seen the movie The Founder.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, with the story of McDonald's and Ray Kroc. The scene when they were in the car park, planning how the kitchen worked and pushing people out the way and that is graphical as to what we should all be doing on our business, isn't it, Jeff?
It really is. In the United States, about 95% of all startup companies will fail to make it beyond their 5th year. 90 to 95%, right? But 96% of all franchises succeed well beyond their 5th year. And the reason is not about the golden arches in the McDonald's example as much as it is about the system. How do you systematize your business? So we focus on helping our clients create not a strategic growth plan and leave it there, but implementing a strategic growth system, because the success of a business is based upon the degree to which you systematize it.
Yeah, absolutely. You were saying earlier about what people need to do, and it's not change for change's sake, but it's more about what makes the boat go faster.
That's right.
And I've got the book here somewhere. Yeah, there we go. And I refer to this quite a lot, because what we do is sort of like, is this going to help the business grow, or is it just something that is, vanity or ego? And this is all about Ben Hunt Davis, who was a rower in the Olympics. And so basically the rowing team never won anything in the Olympics. The UK team are pretty rubbish, and they just had this plan for the next Olympics that if it made the boat go faster, they would do it. If it didn't, then they wouldn't do it. And one of the things that they sacrificed was the opening ceremony at the Olympics that they went to. Everybody was going to the opening ceremony, but their race was the next day or the day after or something. And if they'd gone to that, they're going to miss training. And then, so do we go? And it's sort of like they all turned around together as a team. Will it make the boat go faster?
Yeah.
And
that's a critical question. That's similar to what we ask is what's the problem we're trying to solve? Number one, what's the credible facts and statistics that substantiate that problem exists? And what's the magnitude of the problem? Or is it a storm in a teacup, as you guys would say in many instances, right? What's the problem we're trying to solve? And if we solve it, is it going to make a difference? Is it going to make the boat go faster? Or is it going to make the boat go farther? Or what have you?
Yeah. Or cheaper, or bring in more
climb
revenue,
higher, et cetera.
Yeah. So when you're out working and you go and work with a client, is it something you can do in a couple of weeks? Is it something that takes a couple of years? How do you plan how you work with somebody?
So there are two different sides to our business, two different business models. Under the startup junkie conductor world, it is funded support. In other words, we have third-party funding for our specific geographic area that comes from both the federal government and the state government and other supporters, so that we can provide one-on-one coaching, consulting, mentoring, training, access to capital, et cetera. So on the funded side, it's a coaching conversation by coaching conversation, or it's a workshop or something in that regard. On the innovation junkie side of the house, that's with companies worldwide that really don't qualify for funded or sponsored services of the startup junkie conductor world. It's usually a 12-month engagement. And so it usually begins with some form of innovation sprint to really figure out what are the game changers in the organization. Then it involves a series of 1 or 2 day sessions to help them flesh out their strategic growth plan. And then we work with them quarter by quarter, helping them implement and execute the strategic growth system. And then wrapped around that is usually a bi-weekly to monthly coaching conversation with the CEO and or members of his or her executive team.
Brilliant. And what's the most common themes that you come across that like? But when I'm teaching LinkedIn, most people don't have a decent photo. What sort of things do you see in your line of work, Jeff?
Having had the opportunity to work with thousands of organizations over the years, we have identified about 6 elements that the organizations that create sustainable growth tend to demonstrate. And we've kind of organized this into a framework we call the culture of excellence. So, when I ask people what's culture, Peter Drucker said culture will eat strategy for breakfast. And so what he basically means by that is you can have the best laid plan, but if you don't have a positive or strong culture in your organization, it will consume all of the energy required to effectively execute that plan. And so, positive, strong work cultures have been positively correlated with more revenue growth, more profitability, better client satisfaction, less employee turnover, and negatively correlated with the inverse of all of those things. And so I ask people, what's culture? And they say, well, it's a set of core values that we publish on a really nice wall hanging. And I say, yeah, that's part of it. That may be one iteration of it, but culture is everything. Culture is the core values. It's the unwritten norms, behavior patterns, how we treat each other, how we approach a problem, how we approach our clients. It's how we feel on a Sunday night when we're preparing to go into work on a Monday morning. It's how we feel on a Friday afternoon when we're getting in the car to drive home. It's all of those things and more. And so the 6 elements that we've identified in organizations that drive sustained strategic growth are strong leadership. They've got a team of strong people at the top of the organization who are bought into the direction, who are bought into one another, who are bought into the desired culture of the organization, and they lead by example. The second one is clarity and focus. They make sure that the organization knows who it is, where it's going, how it's going to get there, and they translate that down to every employee so that they understand how they directly contribute to the success of the organization. The next 2 are kind of related. One is engaged and committed teammates. So they have a group of people beyond the leaders who are committed to the mission of the organization, who are individually competent, who are bought into the culture and live by the culture, who are in clearly defined and accepted roles, and know how to contribute to the success of the organization. They build an environment where people communicate with each other in an empowering way, which I call empowering communication. The word empower means to make someone stronger and more confident in dealing with the circumstances they're facing. So empowering communication is a communication style where we may still have to have tough conversations, but we don't end with just a chastisement or a reprimand. We have a tough conversation and we leave there trying to help that person feel stronger and more confident in dealing with whatever it is that we're communicating about. And then the last 2 is 100% accountability. Everyone knows what they're responsible for. They know what they're supposed to do. They do what they say what they do. And if they see that they're at risk at delivering a commitment to someone, the moment they see that risk, they go sit down with that individual and say, hey, I'm at risk. Let's talk about this. And then finally, to use the words of the great management philosopher, Mike Tyson, he says that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Organizations have to have organizational agility and resilience. So individuals have to be mentally tough and resilient, and the organization has to be adaptable, agile, and have that same kind of resilience so that when it gets knocked to the mat, they can get back up again.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. What I've got from all of that, one word: communication.
Mm-hmm.
It's making sure that everybody knows exactly what's expected of them, what's expected of their customers,
right,
and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that makes an awful lot of sense.
And many times we leave that to the devices of the line managers, and we all know that some people are better at communication than others. So back to the systematization of your business, why leave something that's so critical to individual execution at the line manager level? Why not systematize that as well? Why not orchestrate what needs to be communicated when and how it needs to be communicated?
Yeah, some companies, the boss just sends an email to everybody. That's communication, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one form, probably the least effective form, but it is one form.
So what's the best things to be doing to communicate with your team? Oh, hey, we put Slack in last week. That's going to help.
Yeah, so we actually with the senior leaders of the organizations that I work with, we actually build a weekly cadence, a 90-minute weekly cadence where the leaders sit down and they not only cover the agenda of the day, that agenda includes looking at the specific elements of that strategic growth system and making sure that they're progressing against those. The last question they end at the end of every meeting every week is, what communication do we need to cascade down to other members of our team? And what are the bullets of that communication? and let's all get on the same page of what that communication is and how it's going to be communicated. But it goes much more beyond that as well. And you know, having orchestrated how we're going to introduce new employees into our organization, how we're going to recruit and select them, how we're going to onboard them, how we're going to educate and train them, how we're going to promote them, and then how we're going to hold them accountable. All of that is part of the cultural aspects of a company. And if we don't have a plan for using that culture to not only recruit, select, train, coach, promote, and motivate people, if we don't have a process to do that, then once again, we're leaving it to the devices of individual performers in the organization.
So what are the biggest mistakes that leaders make?
Oh gosh, that's really dependent upon the leader. One of the biggest mistakes that I see leaders make is assuming that they've been clear, assuming that everyone understands. They say we've communicated it 5 times and people still don't get it. Well, then if that's a broad problem, then if we've got, our finger pointing out, we've got 4 pointing back at us, right? And so we need to look at how we're communicating it. What's our process? So the biggest mistake, I think, is assuming that everyone has clarity.
Yeah, I've got we're a similar sort of age, Jeff. I don't know if you've got any grandchildren, but I've got a little 4-year-old grandson, and when I give him instructions or talk to him, it's always monosyllabic and short and make sure he understands.
Sure.
And surely that's perfect communication, isn't it?
Yeah. You're not going to get me to say we have to treat employees like kids, because that's what they hear a lot of times. But there are a lot of parallels between parenting and good positive parenting and grandparenting and communication to employees. Not because we put employees on the same level as kids at all, but because good communication is good communication, relevant communication to the audience, making sure the message and the delivery mechanism of the communication is relevant to the audience and where they are at that particular moment.
So how often should I be having a meeting with my team?
So with your team, so I have a regular touch base with everyone who reports to me on a weekly basis, depending on their role within the organization, or a biweekly basis. And I have a regular meeting with the team on a weekly basis as well. My experience is there's too much opportunity for things to fall through the cracks if we don't have those things on the calendar. The other thing that does is it's much more efficient. It prevents the "do you have a minute" situations where it ends up being 30 minutes and it happens multiple times during the week. So now my direct reports, they know that for instance, the person who is my executive director, the conductor, she and I meet at 10 o'clock every Monday morning. So throughout the week, anytime something comes up, she's able to assess, do I need to have a conversation with Jeff now, or does that go on the Monday morning list? 95% of the time, it goes on the Monday morning list. I'm having the same conversation. Do I need to meet with Grace now, or do I need to put this on the Monday morning list? 95% of the time, it goes on the Monday morning list. So when Grace gets a text from me, or I get a text from her asking, do you have a minute? We both know that it's going through the filter of, is this a now or is it a Monday morning thing? And it's much more efficient that way.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And so this Monday morning list, am I party to that list, or is it a surprise when I get there on the Monday morning?
Say that again now. I didn't follow that.
So on a Monday morning, I know I'm meeting with you every Monday at 10 a.m. Yeah. Do I see the list before we have the meeting, or do I wait until we have the meeting?
So I've seen people do it different ways. Grace does that with her team, is they have a shared document that they put the stuff on. Grace and I don't do that. We just wait until Monday morning and knock it out. So I don't know that really matters. We have a very productive meeting every Monday morning, and I know that when she meets with her team, her individual direct reports, she has a very productive meeting with them, and we do it a little bit differently each way. So there are situations where she will flip me a little note and it says, on Monday morning, I want to talk about this, so be thinking about it. So it really varies from person to person and style to style. I think the the importance of the meeting is supreme, and the importance of the cadence, the regular cadence of that meeting is supreme. The nuances around, how the agenda gets made and when it gets shared and what have you is probably preferential.
Yeah. So I used to work for a sales organization donkeys years ago, and the sales manager would have a meeting once a month. And that was basically a meeting where those of us that were not performing so well got wrapped over the knuckles. Those of us that were performing really well got a bottle of something and some rubbish about the way the company's going.
Yeah.
That's not a way to run a sales team, is it?
It is not. It is not. I used to have a Monday morning meeting with my entire sales team when I ran a North American sales group, and we called it Monday Morning Church. And we got together and we talked about where people were and
prayed for some sales.
Yeah. And so throughout my career, I've done a lot of things wrong in terms of those meetings myself. But no, you're right. If a strategic growth plan is in fact strategic and it in fact charts the course to growth for the organization, why aren't we talking about that every single week?
Yeah. And it's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. And the thing is, with the sales team, we all know what sales is like. It's like a roller coaster. It's up and downy all the time, isn't it? And
Sure.
it's my sales manager, the one I'm thinking of. It was never a case of you're doing really well for the year. It was a case of you've done rubbish this month.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we didn't have decent systems in place.
Yeah.
So I used to keep my own spreadsheet, and I'd be in the middle of a month thinking, oh, this is dire. This is dire. What am I doing? And I'd go and have a look at the previous years, same time period. And guess what, Jeff?
Cyclical.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's just say it was. Let's just say we're in the middle of August now. Let's just say it was August. Maybe everyone's on holiday. Take a chill pill, because I've just looked at September and October. I smashed it out at the park the last 3 years out of 4. Yeah. So
we used to joke. We used to joke around. When you closed a big deal or made a big sale, is pat yourself on the back for 15 minutes and then get back out there and get to work. Or what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me today? Right. I understand that you're on track to blow your yearly goal out, but August stinks.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And sadly, you're only as good as your current sale.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've been in roles where it's been a 2 or a 3 year lead time.
That's right.
It's tough. It's tough.
It is tough. It is tough.
So have you got, we've almost run out of time already, Jeff, which is absolutely crazy. But have you got a story of where you've gone into a company, they had a sales manager like I used to have, and it wasn't working, and the leadership team didn't know what they were doing, and you've gone in, and within a set period of time, this has happened, that has happened, etc., etc. Have you got a story you're able to share with us, if you can, please?
Yeah. So I worked with an insurance group and actually became an investor in that group, where the organization had been profitable, but it hadn't really grown. And it was a single location, a ton of clients, mostly commercial clients, but also had some personal lines, auto, home, life insurance, those kinds of things. But a lot of commercial property and casualty and business insurance and what have you. And we implemented the strategic growth system. We ended up putting some leaders in place because it was really just the two operating partners who were running the business. We put someone over the sales organization. We put someone over the personal lines organization. We put someone over the finance and accounting and kind of back office functions. And then we put one of the partners kind of out front, kind of with the public face of the business in leading it strategically. We implemented the strategic growth system. When we did that, we were, like I said, growing just single digits. Since we've done that, they've experienced double-digit growth. When we implemented it, they actually were having a hard time filling positions. And one of the things that they said in their strategic growth plan was that they wanted to become an employer of choice for insurance professionals. And they now have 3 locations. They've acquired multiple agencies. They have 3 locations, own the real estate under each location, and serve about 30 states within the United States today. And just in the last 6 months, they've seen the switch flip, such that they have top talent coming to them saying, "I want to work for you."
Nice. And you're an investor. And you're an investor in that company now, so that's awesome.
I am.
News.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
it's worked out great.
Oh, superb. I could chat to you all day, Jeff, and I got a million questions I haven't asked you, but thanks ever so much for coming on. I got one more question for you, but before I ask you that, I'm going to go and have a chat with our guest next week. But also, how can we get hold of you, Jeff?
Easy to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Jeff Standridge is my handle on LinkedIn. JeffStandridge.com, or you can reach out to me personally at jeffs@innovationjunkie.com.
I love that name, Innovation Junkie. So next week, I have got with me Francesca McClory. She's the quirky accountant, and she is helping business owners do more on social media. So I cannot wait. Francesca is a friend of mine now. We met on LinkedIn, and she is always a wealth of expertise. So I cannot wait to have a chat with her. Jeff, you've been absolutely fantastic today. I've learned so much. I've taken notes. I don't normally write things down when I chat to people. So thanks ever so much indeed. I will be watching this back and listening on the podcast. If you're listening on the podcast and you like this show, then reach out to Jeff. All the details will be in the show notes. Jeff, my last question to you. What advice, if you could go back in time, would you give your 16-year-old self?
My 16-year-old self. Wow, that's a great question. Couple of positioning statements. So when I went off to college, soon after, right after graduating high school, it took me 6 years to complete a 4-year degree.
Okay.
I tell people I crammed a 4-year degree into 6 years. When I graduated college, I purchased the business that I had worked at from the time I was 15 until the time I had graduated high school. And I lost that business a couple of years later and spent the next decade paying off the debt from that. And so those 2 positioning statements, the advice I would give my 16-year-old self is that failure's only failure if you quit. Otherwise, it's just feedback. And if we take every setback as a temporary setback, or every failure as a temporary setback, and we look at what that setback is trying to tell us about our style and our approach, and we adapt our style and approach based upon what that setback is telling us, then failure's only failure if we quit.
Love that. That is great advice. And that is for the next episode I talk to you. I want to dig into that one. Jeff,
let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us so early. You've still got the whole day ahead of you. So have an absolutely fantastic day.
Thank you. You do the same. It's been a pleasure and an honor, and I'd love to connect with any of your listeners, Ashley. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you take care. Cheers, Jeff. Bye-bye now.
You get out.